It's a great pleasure and honor to be here in front of you to speak at this very important conference, in many ways a unique conference. We don't not normally have a conference on the Nahjul Balagha itself. I've submitted my paper, which I hope will be published by the organizers, and I'm thankful for given this invitation. So I will not focus on the paper itself, because as I said, I hope it will be published, but I want to talk more specifically about the spirituality of Imam Ali in general, and talk a little bit about the Nahjul Balagha also. In Islam, we encounter God by emulating people who are close to God. Godly persons, as we call them. We are in search for the awliyaullah, because in many ways God speaks through them. It's interesting to note that when Abu Dharr would meet Imam Ali, he would weep very often, saying that through you I remember the Prophet himself. I do not know about here, but in America we have to be politically correct in whatever we say. When in the olden days when somebody was fat, we'd call them fat. Here in America, at least, you have to call them horizontally challenged. If somebody is short, we said he is vertically challenged. My friends, we are spiritually challenged in our lives today. We are spiritually challenged. We tend to think of ourselves as human beings who sometimes have a spiritual experience. We hear a good lecture, we hear the Quran recited, we feel spiritually rejuvenated. But in reality, we're not human beings having a spiritual experience. We are spiritual beings. We are spiritual beings having a human experience. Because it is from the spiritual world we came, and to the spiritual world we shall return. In between these two spiritual worlds, we're having very temporary, transient human experience. Hence the concept of the return is very important. As we are aware, the Quran talks about the spiritual soul, the soul returning back. Return to your Lord. You being pleased with your Lord and your Lord being pleased with you. Islam asks us to re-evaluate our moral and our spiritual lives. Why? Because our spiritual lives are important to our inner well-being. Spirituality, my friends, is important in how we connect not only with God, but also with our fellow human beings. Our spiritual commitments are to God, but our moral commitments are to fellow human beings. The two are deeply interlinked. That's why Imam Ali says to Aqil at one point, he says that the Aqil not only contemplates correctly, but lives ethically. In other words, the two are deeply connected. What Imam Ali was trying to do was asking us to move, to transit, if you like, from just knowing God to having a vision of that God. You'll recall in the Nahjul Balagha at one point, he stopped in the middle of the khutbah, he was delivering in Kufa, and was asked, Ara'ayta Rabbak? Have you seen your Lord? You keep telling us about your Lord. Have you seen him? And you remember the response that he gave. Ma kuntu abudu rabban lam ara. Ali would never worship a Lord whom he has not seen. But again, he talks of the vision of God through the heart, not through the eyes. And he also continues another point. At another point, he says, "Law kushifa al-ghita ma azdadu yaqinan." That even if the veils between me and my Lord would have been removed, my certitude would not increase at all. In other words, Ali was so certain of God that even if he could physically see God, his certainty would not increase because he had reached that level, the pinnacle of certitude. Our conscience then needs to be nurtured because it is through the nurturing of the conscience that we can become spiritually developed. The more we grow morally, the more our relationship with God and with fellow human beings increases. It is one thing that Imam Ali taught us continuously, which is that of transparency. Transparency meaning the state whereby what is inside a human being is exactly what is outside him or her. The more developed and clear our conscience, the more sincere we become in our relationship. That's a key point that Imam Ali epitomized was sincerity, ikhlas. Because he believed what he said, and he said what he believed. More importantly, the more sincere we become, the more we are free from falsehood. One thing that you will notice about Imam Ali was that he was free completely from falsehood. Therefore, Jalaluddin Rumi was so correct when he says, as Ali, amuz ikhlas amal, sher hakra munazzah hasdaqal, that from Ali learn the sincerity of action, because the lion of God is free from deception. The lion of God, Ali, is free from deception. It is one of the key elements of Ali's spirituality was his sincerity, was his freedom from deception. That's why, by the way, he made so many enemies. Because when you speak the truth and when you stand for the truth, then you're bound to anger quite a few people. For Ali, the conscience is like a mirror. The cleaner the mirror, the more light it reflects. The cleaner the conscious, the more sincere a human being, the more light of God he or she can reflect. To be sure, Imam Ali has always been a key personality in Islamic spirituality, not only in the Shia sense, but even if you look at the Sunni tariqas, the Sufi tariqas I should say, majority of them actually go through, if not end, Imam Ali. Imam Ali also epitomized what true Tawheed means. For us, Tawheed means there is only one God, but for him there was more than that. Tawheed means to destroy the personal self in the face of the divine self. In other words, to see our own self in the presence of the divine. To see our own selves in the presence of the divine. As I said earlier, he did say, Imam Ali said, "Ma kuntu a'budu rabban lam ara." I would never worship a Lord whom I have not seen. Imam Ali did not just worship God, he adored him. He loved God. Because it is from Imam Ali that we can comprehend the quest to experience God in the present world and also to feel his majestic presence, to remove the veils that separate the human from the divine. It's a very beautiful section in Dua Sha'baniyah. And I hope that we recite the Dua Sha'baniyah. And I just want to quote a small section to show. Sallu ala Muhammad wa alam. As to what we mean by this removal of the veils, what do we mean by the spirituality of Amir al-Mu'mineen? In this dua, at one point, Imam Ali says, "O my Lord, grant me total separation from anything but you. Grant me total separation from anything but you, and lighten up my heart with your light, so that the inner eye can tear apart all curtains of light, so that the inner eye can tear apart all curtains of light, and I can have vision of your majesty." I can have vision of your majesty. A key element, by the way, which appears in Nahjul Balagha again and again, if you read through it, is taqwa. Indeed, apart from the Quran, perhaps there's no other document which emphasizes taqwa as much as the Nahjul Balagha does, continuously. Many a time I think that we have made God, na'udhu billah, this despotic, dictatorial God, we call him the fear of God and so on. There is an element of fear in taqwa, but it's more than that. Taqwa is a sense of God awareness, God consciousness, and awareness of God's presence in our lives. So much so that what is inside us is exactly what is outside us. Taqwa acts as a kind of inner police. I was going to say policemen, but then the women will object. So we'll stick to police. It acts as an inner police so that before we commit any acts of sin, the taqwa stops us from sinning. And as I said, taqwa is a very positive faculty in a human being, emphasized over and over again in the Quran and in the Nahjul Balagha. At one point in the Quran, you'll recall the very famous verse in the Quran, "Ittaqullaha wa yu'allimukumullah," that have the taqwa in God and God will teach you. It's the Quran which is saying this. How can God teach me? Do I have to go to a university or a hawza? You don't have to go anywhere for God to teach you. If you have the taqwa, God will come to you. He speaks to us through our conscience, through our taqwa. That's why Imam Ali emphasizes the clarity of the conscience all the time. And for Imam Ali is seen in the Nahjul Balagha, taqwa is a positive spiritual faculty. It's not just any faculty, it's a spiritual faculty which appears as a result of continued exercise and practice. It is this faculty, the faculty of taqwa, that strengthens and vitalizes the soul, giving the soul a kind of immunity from unethical behavior. When a person's behavior is unethical, then there is no taqwa. The message of taqwa, the Nahjul Balagha, is also very clear. That taqwa grants a human being spiritual freedom. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. It grants a human being spiritual freedom and liberation from lust. It's amazing. At one point in the Nahjul Balagha, Imam Ali, what he says about those who are true muttaqi. He says, and I quote, there are those who see what others do not see. They see what others do not see. They hear what others do not hear. They have access to divine secrets. They have access to divine secrets. If you like, taqwa creates a free slave, a person who's free from bondage and a slave only to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He's free from all kind of lusts. There's a beautiful hadith actually, which is not in the Shia literature, it's actually in Bukhari. For those who've studied Bukhari, you'll know that Bukhari sometimes has the same hadith appearing in different abwab, different chapters. And sometimes the same hadith appears at different points. Sometimes there's only a title with no hadith at all. You couldn't find a hadith for that particular title. But this particular hadith appears at least 3 times in Bukhari's Sahih. The tradition is from Mutarrif bin Abdullah. 3 minutes left, okay. It's from Mutarrif bin Abdullah, and he says that I was in Basra and I went to the mosque. Then Ali ibn Abi Talib was leading the prayer. It's only 2 people praying. And then Imran bin Hussein joined him. And Mutarrif says that as we were about to go into ruku, Imam Ali raised up his hands in takbir. As he got up from ruku, he raised up his hands in takbir. And he inspired us in prayers. And Mutarrif says that after Ali ibn Abi Talib finished the prayer, the other person who was praying with me came and shook my hands. And pointing to Ali ibn Abi Talib, he said, لَقَدْ صَلَّى صَلَاةَ مُحَمَّدٍ وَلَقَدْ ذَكَّرَنِي صَلَاةَ مُحَمَّدٍ. That he prayed the prayers of Muhammad. He reminded me of how Muhammad used to pray himself. That tells us that people had forgotten how the Prophet used to pray. It required someone like Imam Ali to remind them of how the Prophet himself used to pray. For Imam Ali then, as I wind up, that doing beautiful deeds to others is a reflection of the divine beauty that lies within us. When we do beautiful deeds to others, it reflects the divine beauty within us. The overflowing love to others is based on the overflowing love for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. As Imam Ali continues in the Nahjul Balagha, that when human beings are spiritually close to the divine, when they are close to the divine, they experience the world in a totally different way. They don't see the world that way that you and me do. Why? Because extraordinary powers are given to extraordinary human beings. Therefore, Imam Ali continues, and I quote, he says, he, this extraordinary person, the Waliullah, he did everything for the sake of Allah, so much so that Allah made him his very own. Allah made him his very own. And I conclude by Imam Ali's words to Kumail bin Ziyad about the Awliyaullah. He says, Imam Ali says, springs of knowledge and wisdom spring from their hearts because their bodies are with the people, but their souls are at a different plane. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.
Hassan, thank you very much. Let's hope that we don't have to resort to using the terms vertically challenged or horizontally challenged. However, we do hope that the term of spiritually challenged becomes commonplace and allows us to try and develop ourselves spiritually. And the understanding of God by Imam Ali, as displayed in Nahjul Balagha, is profound. And in fact, his whole idea, his whole understanding is encapsulated within that first sermon of Nahjul Balagha, which all of you, when you get an opportunity to do, there's Nahjul Balagha on sale outside as well, the Islamic Thought publication. A quick plug there as well. But the first sermon there, and his understanding of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is so profound that all the philosophers and those that came after were unable to reach that level where Imam Ali has explained. Moving on swiftly to our next speaker, who is Dr. Muhammad Khalid. He received his MA from the University of Birmingham and a PhD from the University of Aberdeen in Scotland. Prior to this, Dr. Khalid received an MA in Islamic Studies from Markaz-e-Ulum Islamiyya in Pakistan and a BA in Islamic Studies from Idara Ishatul Ulum in Pakistan. For over 20 years, he has been a minister of religion and has been a visiting lecturer in local schools. Dr. Khalid holds the post of a senior consultant in Islamic issues and has had extensive experience in community-wide issues. Furthermore, he has written many articles for a leading Urdu newspaper, the Daily Jung London, on the topics of education, problems of youth, of Muslim youth, Islam and extremism, etc. He also writes articles and features in the English Azan magazine and Naveed al-Sahar on the topics of Muslim youth and education, youth and crimes, Islam and terrorism, community-related issues. Dr. Khalid's research and teaching interests include history, studies of narration, study of the Holy Quran. His topic today is politics in the light of Nahjul Balagha. So could you please welcome Dr. Muhammad Khalid with a loud salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen wal aqibatu lil muttaqeen wassalatu wassalamu ala khatamil anbiya'i wal mursaleen wa ala ali baytihi at-tahirin al-mutahhirin wa ala ashabihi al-muntakhabin wa man tabi'ahum bi ihsanin ila yawmiddin. Amma ba'd, dear ulama kiram, my respected elders, brothers and sisters, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. First of all, I am really and greatly grateful and thankful to my brother Maulana Maqbool Alvi Saab and all his colleagues for granting me this great and rare opportunity to benefit from this great Islamic conference on the great topic, and the major theme is Nahjul Balagha and its different aspects. As you know, my topic is the politics in the light of Nahjul Balagha. It is indeed a rare privilege to me to elaborating on the crucial but amazing topic, the nature of the politics in the light of Nahjul Balagha. No doubt, Nahjul Balagha is a great monumental in the history of literature, containing the most outstanding sermons of Imam Ali, pertaining to almost all major topics, guiding humanity to the right direction. And obviously, no exception for the politics. We may find numerous khutbat, sermons of Imam Ali, dealing with the politics, governmental policies, good management, and the qualities of a successful leadership. The current work is going to be focused on the same areas with a view to comprehending the fundamental rules and instruction expounded by Imam Ali as have been preserved in the treasure trove of Nahjul Balagha. My brothers and sisters, the Quran not only lays down principles of morality and ethics, but also provides the guidance in the political, social, and economic fields. For instance, it prescribes punishments for the certain crimes and enunciates principles of morality and official policy. These cannot be translated into practice unless there is a state to enforce them. In the Quran, we can find numerous instances of governments and states established by the great people, including some of the prophets and their successors. The Holy Quran has provided the major teachings and the principles in terms of the system of governance, and they are as follows. First, the sovereignty of Almighty God. It means we belong to God and are duty bound to submit ourselves to the will of God Almighty, especially when we are in the power. And the second important principle is the process of ashura, which means all affairs of Ummah have to be conducted and decided through the process of mutual consultation. And this collective consultation is not only concerned with the administrative or social affairs, but equally related to the high levels, such as parliament, judiciary, and the election of the head of the state. The third important pillar is the establishment of justice, irrespective of race, color, religion, nationality, and language. The fourth one is freedom. Islam gives the right of freedom of thought and expression to all citizens of a Muslim state, and no one is allowed to deny or violate these fundamental rights. The fifth one is equality, which means that individuals comprised in a society are equal in rights, liberties, responsibilities, and public duties, which are to be enjoyed by all without discriminations. My brothers and sisters, these are the major principles of a Muslim state and Islamic system of governance, which have to be regarded in all conditions and climes. Let's see how Ali bin Abi Talib had regarded and promulgated these principles during his short period of caliphate. Imam Ali was a great authority of the Holy Prophet in all aspects of life, especially in the field of knowledge, fair judgments, politics, and good governance. His teachings and instructions are paramount, which were issued on different occasions and are preserved by the pages of Nahjul Balagha very especially. He beautifully expounded the importance and need of politics, good governance, and establishment of social justice. To him, the sanctity of human life and establishment of justice was so important that he never had overlooked them even in the most critical conditions in the battlefield, where he resorted to the apparent failure but never turned back from his ideals. Indeed, he had considered the social justice as the prime aim of the prophetic mission. Nahjul Balagha deals with numerous topics concerning the state, politics, and social justice, and they are the necessity and value of state, the Islamic concept of authority, and how to establish the justice and eliminate the aggressions and injustices from society. In his letters and khutbat, Imam had denoted the basic rules and principles how to lead community and how to establish the social justice. He also discussed the duties and obligations of the rulers and governors to be undertaken and how a nation is prone to decline when it has drifted from the right guidance. So my brothers and sisters, in Nahjul Balagha, one of the frequently discussed issues is that of government and justice. Imam Ali had ruled the Ummah for about 5 years, and during which he cited the higher examples of morality, selflessness, and establishment of justice. He had always stood for his ideals even in the most critical circumstances where anyone is come to compromise with expedience with a view to saving him and his interest from failure. Let's see what he says in his sermon, khutbah number 216 in Nahjul Balagha. But the most important of the reciprocal rights that God has made obligatory is the right of the ruler over the subjects and the rights of the subjects over the ruler. It is a mutual obligation decreed by God for them, and He has made it the basis of the strength of their society and their religion. Consequently, the subjects cannot prosper unless the rulers are righteous. If the subjects fulfill their duties toward the ruler and ruler his duty to them, then righteousness prevails among them. Only then the objectives of the religion are realized, the pillars of justice become stable, and wholesome traditions become established. Justice is highly regarded by Ali bin Abi Talib, and according to his viewpoint, it is the principle of justice that is of crucial significance in preserving the balance of society and winning goodwill of the public. Its practice can ensure the health of society and bring peace to its soul. Justice is like the public highway which has room for all and through which everyone may pass without impediment. But injustice and aggression constitute a blind alley which does not lead even the oppressor to his desired destination. My brothers and sisters, in view of Ali, the concept and standard of justice and taqwa, the leading historians and scholars of ahadith, al-Balazari, al-Tabari, and Ibn Asir, recorded that in the very outset of the Battle of Siffin, the rival forces of Ali had stopped and seized the water for Ali's forces. As they approached the plain of Siffin earlier and took the advantage of capturing the wells of water. When all peaceful negotiation and measures have proved in vain, Ali had captured the wells of water from Muawiyah's armies by using his force. But never seized the water for them. Rather, he allowed his opponents to take water for their drinking and other needs. It was indeed a rare example could be seen in the battlefield where everything is allowed. In battlefield, especially when Ali was blatantly denied the water earlier. My brothers and sisters, in the view of Imam Ali, the rulers are the people's trustees, not their lords. A ruler has to be a protector of the rights of the people and responsible to them. In his letter to the governor of Azerbaijan, he wrote, "Beware lest you consider this assignment as a bait for acquiring personal gain. Rather, it is a trust lying on your neck. You have been charged with caretaking of people by your superior. It is not for you to betray your duties with respect to the people." Nahjul Balagha. In another letter written as a circular to tax collectors, he says, "Fulfill the demands of justice in your relationship with the people and be patient in matters regarding their needs, because you are the trustees of the people, representatives of humanity and envoys of your imams." In the history of Islam, we are taken by surprise to see how Imam Ali had retained his higher moral standard and ideals even in the most difficult time in the battlefield. If he had accepted the argument of the Khawarij and restarted the fight by rejecting the agreement of arbitration, the outcome of the battle would have been in his favor, but it was impossible for Ali to turn back from his promise, because this time Khawarij forced him to restart the fight because they realized their mistake, their error, and they compensated and repented. But he said no, because promise, agreement has been consummated, I cannot turn back from my promise. Ali bin Abi Talib did not use a single dirham to enhance his image and was very strict in the affairs of Baytul Mal, the public treasury. Both his real brother Aqil bin Abi Talib and his cousin Ibn Abbas left him at a time of need when he was greatly in trouble. What was the reason? For the reason that he denied to give some money to Aqil bin Abi Talib from Baytul Mal and demanded from Ibn Abbas the return of money he borrowed from Baytul Mal. There are misconceptions, my brothers and sisters, about the rulership and the position of Imam Ali bin Abi Talib, and this is my final session. Ali's position as a ruler is misconceived by many people along with historians, even from non-Muslim historians and thinkers as well, such as Professor Hitti, Velozan, William Muir, these people. While comparing his reign with his three predecessors, when they find no much successes in his rule in terms of conquests and the expansion of the boundaries of the Islamic Caliphate, rather they see horrendous civil wars during his short period. It ultimately led them to the conclusion that Ali was not a successful ruler. This view is not grounded historically, as this is devoid of the factual information and analysis. We may try to comprehend the case of Imam Ali from the other angle. Suppose if Ali were given the same sport that was enjoyed by his three predecessors, what the result would have been? Had it been the same or different? Very important point here. Furthermore, had the three previous caliphs were betrayed by their followers exactly in the same way as Ali had been, still would we have seen the same result in the form of the magnificent conquest during the time of the three previous caliphs? Important point. My brothers and sisters, we have to bear in our mind that the mission of Ali was to bring the Ummah back to the ideals of the Holy Prophet and establish society on the same norms and foundations. But unfortunately, society was not willing to accept the reforms which Ali wanted to implement, and he was not provided the support he needed for his mission. And that's all from me. Wa akhiru da'wana alhamdulillahi rabbil alameen. Thank you for your patience and listening.